So first of all, salary means what? Anybody know? What's that? Paid per, well, per month, per week. I mean, that's kind of like the intervals on which you get paid. Which if you have an hourly job, you might get paid once a week or twice a month or once a month as well. So the intervals that you get paid could be the same salary versus hourly. Does anybody know how salary works generally? What's that? Yeah, it's per year. You don't get paid once per year, but you get paid a total amount of money per year. And then they break that down into intervals throughout the year. And so going into a job, you know exactly how much money you're going to make over the course of that year. So it says the difference between being paid once or twice a month right here. It says Chelsea Patterson teaches photography at a community college. She earns an annual salary of $50,000. Not enough these days. That's pretty low for teaching, especially at a college. Her classes start in September and end in June. Sounds like my job. And she has a 2-month summer break. So a lot like my job. She can choose to be paid monthly or bi-monthly. Bi-monthly means twice a month. Monthly means once a month. So we'll be talking about this as well in terms of like how many times you get paid per year based on what these words mean. We'll make a little chart with all that. But let's just talk in general for a few minutes here. Like with salary, what seems to be a benefit about salary versus an hourly rate? Anybody think of more secure, meaning like you know ahead of time? Yeah, for sure. It is nice. I gotta say, like personally, like having a salary is really nice for me because it's like I know that the amount of time that I put in at my job, no, generally speaking, the amount of time, the expected hours that you work, here's the notes for today. It's still an 8-hour a day job, right? I got to be at work for 8 hours a day. And I'm not here for less than 8 hours a day. Now, that's nice because I know exactly how much I'm going to get paid every single month for the entire year, which is great. There's no inconsistencies there. If I work, I'm going to work my amount of time that I need to. And the way that my salary is calculated, by the way, is there are a certain number of days out of the year that I work, and those number of days are put together, and that becomes my salary. And so I think it's like 190 days a year that I work, which gives me in the summertime, yeah, I get pretty much the same summer vacation as all you do, which is great. We come back to work a week before you show up in the fall, which works out to be a really nice schedule. One of the misconceptions about teaching, and just to clear up any confusion, because this misconception has been around for a long time, even since I was a kid. And it's the misconception that teachers get paid for their vacations in the summertime. That is not true. Yes, I do get a paycheck in the summer. However, my salary that I earn is spread out over 12 months, but I only get paid for the time that I'm here. I do get a paycheck for the time that I'm not here, but that's because I have it spread out over more time. If I condense that, I could say, yeah, I just want to get 9 paychecks a year, which would make each paycheck quite a bit larger. But I prefer to have my paycheck spread out over 12 months. That way I get the same exact amount every single month throughout the entire year. But teachers do not get paid for vacation. We don't get paid for spring break. We don't get paid for winter break. We don't get paid for summer break. We're not working. We don't get paid. So I think that is one of the misconceptions about teaching. It's like, oh, you get summers off and you get paid for your summers off. I'm like, no, we don't get paid for my summers off. Actually, when I first started teaching, I had to find part-time work during my summers because the teaching salary didn't quite pay enough for me to like do all the things I needed to and wanted to do with my life. After a while, though, I got my master's, and so I don't need to work in the summers anymore. But like, yeah, starting off, it was a bit tight. But yeah, that is one of the misconceptions about teaching, because yeah, a lot of people know that teachers get paychecks in the summertime, and they think that means they're getting paid for the work they're not doing, which is not true. So one of the benefits, as you mentioned, which is true, is that you know stably exactly how much money you're going to earn over the course of a year. What could be a drawback of salary? What's that? Not only less overtime pay, no overtime pay. So like, there is a way for teachers to earn extra money, but it does not involve staying late. For example, like you all know that a lot of teachers will get here before they need to, and they'll leave after they need to, right? So like our hours are 7:30 to 3:30. Plenty of teachers stay later than 3:30. Plenty of teachers show up before 7:30. Those extra hours that are put in, teachers do not see any extra money from that. In fact, any salary job, you don't get any extra money for extra hours that you put in. So that is definitely a potential drawback. Like there are times I'll sometimes come in on a weekend to do some planning and things like that. I don't see any extra money because of that. I'm not allowed to time card that, which is fine. It's part of the job. It's something that I knew going into it. So I'm not going to complain about it. It just is. It's just part of the job. So basically you do the job, and with some jobs that earn salary, if you finish your work in less than 8 hours for a particular day, you can be done for the day. Now that doesn't really work for teachers because we've got classes all day long, right? I can't just leave right now because I'm like, hey, I taught you what I needed to do, right? When the lesson is over today and we've got 30 minutes of work time, I don't leave because I don't say, hey, my job's done, I'm out. That doesn't really work with teaching. But with other jobs, like if you're a programmer or something like that, and you earn a salary and you're a programmer, if you finish the work that you're supposed to do for a day, you can just clock off in some cases, which that's definitely a benefit. But if you are on a salary and you're a programmer and you have to put in 12 hours on what's normally an 8-hour day, you don't get overtime. So there's some give and take there. A lot of time it balances out, but sometimes it's in the interest of the company to pay people their salary because it sometimes costs them less. One of the ways that teachers can make a little bit extra money is if we cover for somebody else's class. So for example, if I were to use my prep time to sub for another teacher, then I would get a little bit extra money because of that. But that's really the only way that happens with my particular salary job. So quick question over on the side here. How could the number of times you're paid each year affect your budgeting plans? So like if you're paid once a month versus twice a month versus once a week, how could that affect how somebody might budget their money? Any thoughts on that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So if you're paid, like with teaching, the example that Calvin was giving is like, if you're teaching and you take 9 paychecks as opposed to 12, that means that you end up having to you have to set aside money from every single paycheck in order for that money to actually last you throughout the summer. Because otherwise, if you spend all your money every single month you're paid, that means that there's 3 months that you don't earn money, which means that there's 3 months that you can't spend any money if you spend all of it, right? That's not a great deal. So yeah, if you're paid in different intervals, sometimes you'll have to set aside more money than others. I remember with other districts that I've worked in, I always got 12 paychecks, but oftentimes at the end of June, at the end of the school year, all 3 of my summer paychecks would show up at once, right? And so it's like, I got paid in June and then I didn't get paid again until the end of September. But I got those 3 paychecks. And so it's like, okay, I need to budget out, like, how much money am I spending per month? What are my costs? What are my expenses? How much money am I trying to save? And then I'd have to divide that out over 3 months and just kind of chunk that out and be like, okay, I have to pretend that this large amount of money isn't real. It doesn't exist, because if I act like it's real and I can just have fun with it, I'm not going to have money by the end of the summer to actually like buy groceries. And so that idea of budgeting is really important. Thankfully here, they actually spread it out. And I say thankfully, but I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty good with budgeting myself, so it wasn't much of a stretch, but it can be a challenge for some folks. So salary. Many employees are paid on a salary. Salary is a fixed amount of money that you earn on a regular basis. Most of the time, salary is annual, right? You're going to earn a certain amount a year. Your salary might be paid weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, or monthly. Your annual salary is the total salary you earn during the year. There are 52 weeks in a year, 26 bi-weekly, 24 semi-monthly, and 12 monthly pay periods per year. So these words and numbers right here are going to be very important for today's lesson. In fact, if you want to highlight them, if you have a highlighter or underline them, that might be a good thing to do, just because if you get paid weekly, that means you get 52 paychecks a year. If you get paid bi-weekly, that would be every other week. That would be 26 paychecks a year. If you get paid semi-monthly, that's twice a month. If you get paid monthly, that's once a month. Or over here, bi-monthly would be every other month, which would be 6 paychecks. 6 paychecks a year if it's bi-monthly. So those are going to be the numbers that are going to be important as we're working through today. If you end up memorizing them, great. You don't have to memorize them because they're right there. So in figuring out your salary per pay period, you take your annual salary and you divide it by the number of pay periods per year. So, for example, if Chelsea gets paid monthly, it's going to be 50 divided by 12, or 50,000 divided by 12, which would be $4,166.67 per month before taxes. So the gross pay is that. If she gets paid 6 paychecks a year, so that would be 50,000 divided by 6. That'd be every other month. That's a big paycheck, $8,333.33. That is a large paycheck. However, that's gross pay. That's definitely before taxes. Taxes with a salaried job, you're going to lose probably 30% of that or a little bit more due to taxes and other things. And so we'll just say that. So that's $5,833-ish that you might take home in 2 months. So if you divide that by 2, that gives you about $3,000 a month that you're actually using on living expenses. Now, if you have a mortgage or rent, right? If let's say Chelsea lives alone, 2-bedroom apartment in this town, I don't know what, probably at least $1,000 a month, right? I would think for a 2-bedroom apartment. So after rent, let's say she's bringing home about $2,000 a year. Maybe she has a car payment that's like $300 a month. So you've got that much left for like utilities, phone bills, cable, internet, TV, streaming services, gas for your groceries. And then whatever's left after that is going to be for like discretionary income, or maybe she wants to put savings away too. So you can see how quickly that money can actually go away. And $50,000 might sound like a lot of money, but if you're living by yourself and it's on one income these days with the cost of living, it doesn't actually end up being that much left over, which is kind of crazy. So moving on to some work here. The notes aren't very long here. They generally aren't. Tomorrow's are going to be pretty short too. Which leads me to the next thing. Our first tests for chapter 1 will be next week. I don't know exactly which day. We'll do 1 day of review before we do that. By the way, for tests, you will be given 1 piece of paper, or you'll be allowed to use 1 piece of paper as notes on the test. So whatever you have from your notes, formulas, things like weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, monthly, or bi-monthly, those might be good things to have to put on this piece of paper in terms of what they mean. Examples of problems, things like that, whatever you can fit onto the front and back of 1 piece of paper is what you'll be allowed to use on the test. So Tom Costello is a website designer. His annual salary is $67,400. What is Tom's monthly salary? What is his weekly salary? So 2 things we need to figure out here. So you got annual salary, and we're going to figure out the salary per month. So salary per pay period is equal to the annual, which is $67,400, divided by the number of pay periods per year. So in terms of per month, that is going to be his annual salary of $67,400 divided by what? If it's every month, what are we dividing by? 12. All right. So how much money is he earning per month? Round to the nearest cent. $5,616.67. That's monthly. How about per week? So use the formula, but figure it out per week this time. So do that on your own real quick. Find out his salary per week. Don't divide that by 4 because there aren't exactly 4 weeks in a month. So that's not going to work if you divide that by 4. You got to take the annual salary and divide by the number of pay periods per year. Once a week. Yep, divide by 52 because there's 52 weeks in a year. That would be $1,296.15 per week. So that's all we're doing here. That's pretty much everything that we're doing today. You figure out the annual salary, you divide by the number of pay periods per year based on how you're getting paid. These are the numbers that you're going to be dividing by. So I want you to answer 1 and 2 on your own. Flip back and forth if you need to. Or if you want, it might be, usually if I'm flipping back and forth and wondering about that, I'll do something like this. Say, oh, hey, bi-weekly, that's 26 times a year. I'll just do a little note. Flip back, semi-monthly. It's going to be twice a month. So that's 24 times a year. So bi-weekly and semi-monthly are nearly the same division, but not quite. Yeah. So it'll never round down. It can only round up. So it either stays the same or it goes up by 1. How much does Sam earn every paycheck? $16.50. So getting paid every other week, Sam's going to earn $1,650 per pay period, which is every other week. Now, you might think every other week is the same thing as getting paid twice a month, but it's not quite, because there aren't exactly 2 weeks in a month. Most months have about 2.5 weeks. Sorry, 4.5 weeks, not 2. There's actually only 1 month on a regular basis that has exactly 4 weeks, and that's February, except for this year. There's 4 weeks and 1 day this year because this year was a leap year. But most months are about 4.5 weeks, and so that's why we're not going to divide a month into 4 weeks. You're either going to talk about bi-weekly, which is every other week, which ends up being 52 weeks a year divided by 26, or year divided by 26. Here's year divided by 24. Twice a month, 18,200 divided by 24. Brenda, every pay period earns what? 33 cents. Good. Cool. So this next one is a bit of a comparison, because sometimes you have to decide. Sometimes if you're lucky enough, you'll be offered 2 jobs, and then you have to determine which of the 2 jobs should I take. Now, the amount of money that you earn, I just want to make this really clear. The amount of money that you earn, either hourly or salary, is not the only thing to consider when you are offered a job. Especially if it's like what's considered, hard to say this without sounding like kind of snooty, but like a, I don't know, like a career level kind of job, right? As opposed to entry level. So what else would you consider before we do this problem? What else might you consider when somebody offers you a job? Like, let's say it's like you graduated from like a trade school or a 4-year degree, or you get a master's degree or something like that. What would other things be aside from just pay that would influence whether or not you take a job? Location, for sure. What else? Yeah, like co-workers are like the culture of the place where you're working. Yeah, because I don't know about you, but like if you pay me a lot of money, but I'm in a job that is around people who like it's just not a good environment, like that's not to me wouldn't be worth the money. Um, that would take a toll for sure. So yeah, the people that you work with, the culture of the business or whatever it is that you're working at. What else? Location, culture. What other things would you consider? Somebody offers you a job. The commute. Okay, yeah, for sure. How far away it is from where you work. Yeah. If you have to go to the office like all the time and it's far away, or maybe work from home, right? That's definitely a thing to consider. Some people prefer leaving home to work as opposed to staying at home because they want that differentiation between like my home is my home. I don't want it to like be weird and blended with my workspace. Some people don't mind it. Some people prefer it. Other things to consider? Housing market for sure. Yeah, cost of living, right? Because I don't know, if somebody offers you $100,000 for a job here and somebody offers you $100,000 to work and live in Portland, that $100,000 is probably going to go not much further, but a little bit further here than in Portland. Because cost of living is going to be a little bit higher there than it is here. Yeah, for sure. Other things to consider, along with location, would be like state income tax. I know we haven't talked about that yet, but there are some states that don't take out taxes on the state level. Wherever you work, federal, national taxes will be taken out of your pay. But like Washington, right across the river, they don't have a state income tax. However, if you live in Oregon and work in Washington, you are still subject to the Oregon state income tax because you live. Which is why you guys know Vancouver, Washington, right? There's a lot of people that live in Vancouver, Washington and work in Washington and then do their shopping in Oregon. Why would they do that? Yeah, there's no sales tax in Oregon and there's no income tax in Washington. It's like people over in Goldendale. Like if you live and work in Goldendale, you have a Washington address, you don't pay state income tax. And then if you come to Oregon to do your shopping, you don't pay sales tax. So, you know, you're able to save some money. It's not illegal. It's not shady. It's just something that people do to like actually hang on to a little bit more of the money that they earn. So that is a thing as well in terms of considering jobs. Another thing would be benefits, like health insurance. Does anybody know how much health insurance costs if you buy it on your own? I can't give you exact numbers, but I can tell you it's not cheap. And so if you are offered like full benefits with health insurance, like that needs to be taken into consideration in terms of what's called total compensation, because you might apply for a job that pays you $80,000 a year, and it also comes with like $20,000 worth of benefits. Or maybe you're offered a job that pays you $95,000 a year, but offers no benefits. The one that pays you $80,000 a year is actually going to be a better option financially, maybe not culturally, maybe not location, but financially, the $80,000 a year job probably is a better financial decision because you're not going to have to pay out of pocket for a lot of stuff. Whereas with the $95,000 a year job, you will, which will definitely decrease the amount of money that you get to keep. So there's a lot of factors to consider when being offered jobs. Anyway, all that being said, one of the things I like about this class, we can just talk about real life stuff. Your job as a wedding planner pays a monthly gross salary of $2,560. You're offered a new position as an event planner at a children's museum that pays $12.60 per hour with time and a half per hour for all hours over 40 per week. How many hours of overtime per week would you need to work in order to earn the same amount of money as your current job? So this is going to be a comparison of two jobs. Should you take the new job or should you stick with the one that you have? Just in terms of money, right? We're not talking about culture or location, anything like that. Let H represent the number of overtime hours needed, okay? Write an equation to show the relationship between your hourly wages, your overtime pay, and your weekly pay, and let H represent the overtime hours. Okay, so hourly wages plus your overtime pay is equal to your weekly pay. Now, the hourly wages are going to be represented for 40 hours a week, right? How much do you make an hour? $12.60. All right, so that's going to be 12.6 times 40. That'll be your hourly wages. Plus, what's the amount of money you earn per hour for your overtime? Yeah, $18.90 an hour, so 18.9. And then we're using H for a number of overtime hours. And the question is, how many hours of overtime per week would you need to earn the same amount as your current job? So same amount as your current job pays you how much a month? Yeah, 2,560. So that's the equation we're solving right there. So let's go ahead and work on it. Let's multiply out 12.6 times 40. What is 12.6 times 40? 504. All right. So 504 plus 18.9H equals 2560. What do we do next? Solving for H here. What do we have to do next? Yeah, get rid of the 504. So minus 504 minus 504. All right. What is 2,560 minus 504? $2,560 minus 504. Yeah, 2,056. All right, last step. Divide by 18.9. All right. Now, you might have noticed this by now, most of the algebra that we do is really similar most of the time. Most of the equations we solve have been very similar to this one here. If we divide by 18.9, what does that turn out to be? What happens if we divide it? What do we get? Yeah. So H is 108.78. Now, what we're saying here is that you need 108.78 hours of overtime a month. That doesn't really make sense, does it? Which means something didn't quite go right earlier on. Anybody see what happened that we should have done that we didn't do? Sorry about having to make you do this problem twice, but I wanted to see if anybody kind of caught what was going on here. What is the 2,560? Monthly pay. What does this say? Weekly pay. Oh. How do we find the weekly pay if we know the monthly pay? Not quite. Because I said, like what I was mentioning earlier is that if you have monthly pay, you can't find weekly pay just by dividing by 4. That doesn't really work. So what's the formula for salary? What formula for salary is per pay period equals the annual salary divided by the number of pay periods. So if the monthly salary is 2,560, what's the annual salary? 30,720. That's the annual salary. So that means that the weekly salary is what? A week? What are we dividing by for weekly? That would be bi-weekly. We're divided by 52, yeah. So annual 30,720, weekly is what? Yeah. Actually, I got 30,720 divided by 52. I got 590.77. Does that sound okay? 590.77? Okay. So then what should we have done with our equation then? The left side to me looks fine. The right side, though, should have been, yeah, should have been 590.77. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that. I should have used a pencil, but 590.77. And so this is still 590.77. That's still minus 504, though, which is going to be a much smaller number, which is 86.77. So 86.77 divided by 18.9. What does that end up equaling? $4.59, about 4.6, yeah? So that means in a given week, she would need to work about a little bit more than 4.5 hours of overtime every week. So that would be putting in about 44 and a half hours every week as opposed to 40. Now, here's the thing we don't know. We don't know how many hours she was working per week on her salary, right? She was paid for 40 hours a week. Maybe she was putting in 47 hours a week. We don't know. However, if she was only working 40 hours a week, then I don't know if I'd want to work an extra half day every single week just to earn the same amount of money. That would be kind of annoying to me. But if she's putting in a lot more than 40 hours here just to, get that salary, then I would say absolutely do this one. But it all depends on other parameters. But in order to break even, that's how many overtime hours need to be worked every week. All right, let's keep going. This last problem, this is the last page we're on here. This one will require use of our graphing calculators. So everybody fire up your graphing calculators. So Miguel, Jose, Esteban. Wake up. Miguel. Hey, there he is. Jose. Go fire up your calculator. All right. Okay. So I want to work through this. I want to show you some cool things that the calculator can actually do. I promise you've never done this on your calculator before. And the reason why I know that is because I had never done this on my calculator before. So I'm guessing, okay, I shouldn't assume that you know how to do this when I hadn't done, or that you don't know how to do it. But I'm guessing that most of us have not done this before, which is kind of fun. Fun to learn something new because these things here will do a lot of good work for us. So this one here says you have two different job offers. Job one has a starting salary of $36,000 with a potential pay raise of 3.5% per year. Job two is a starting salary of $34,500 with a potential pay raise of 4.5% per year. So first of all, if we were just doing this by hand, you could go ahead and figure out 3.5% of 36 by multiplying 36,000 by 3.5%, which would be 0.035, which is 1,260. And then you could add that to $36,000. And that means that the next year would be $37,260. And then you can multiply that by 0.035 and then add it to this number here. And then just keep going with that pattern over and over and over. Likewise, you could take 34,500, multiply it by 0.045, add it to that number, and then just do that process over and over. Now, you might notice that right here is the same number as the one that's on the calculator currently, 37,260 after the first year. And that's because we can tell our calculator an equation, and it will just give us all of the subsequent years after that. Because if I multiply this number here by 0.035, and then I added that to the 37,260, we get $38,564.10, which is this number right here, $38,564. So the way that we can just have our calculator do it for us, as opposed to like spending a bunch of time using a bunch of different buttons, is we can go to the list feature on our calculator. So here's where I need everybody to follow along with their calculators. So this is for job 1. Now, if you've done a little bit of algebra 2 already, you probably use this feature on the calculator, at least this particular feature. If you click on the stat button, which is next to the left arrow by the directional pad, click on stat. It's going to bring up a list. At the top, it says edit, and then number 1 says edit, 2 says sort A, sort D, control list, and then set up editor. We're just going to choose option number 1, which is edit. Yeah. We're going to choose option number 1. And option number 1 just says edit, and it's going to take you to a list. Does anybody have numbers in their lists right now? Anybody have numbers in their lists? No? Everybody's lists are blank, hopefully. Okay. If they're not, let me know, so I'll tell you how to clear those out. But if there's no numbers, that's a good thing. All right. So stat edit, we're there. In L1, underneath L1, just type in the numbers 0 through 6. So 0, enter, 1, enter, 2, enter, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you should have 7 numbers, starting with 0, ending with 6 in L1, which is list 1. This is something you might have done on this calculator already. Now, the next part is probably something that you haven't done before. So get 0 through 6 on there, scroll to the right. Then, in the L2 formula bar, enter the formula for calculating the salary as follows. So L2 formula bar means scroll up, highlight L2. Then these are all the buttons that you need to push. Alpha, which is the green one. Then hit plus, because that says you're going to the, there's a little set of parentheses down there when you hit the plus button. It's going to say parentheses, not parentheses, quotation marks. And then you're going to type in 36,000. So 36000, and you are going to multiply that by 1.035, which basically is saying an increase of 3.5% salary per year, so 1.035. And then you're going to do an exponent button. So the exponent button is above the division button right here. And then for your exponents, you're going to hit the second button, which is the blue one at the top left. And then 1, which is L1. It's going to import the values from list 1 and enter them as your exponent, and then hit enter. And when you hit enter, those should be the exact same numbers that are on the list 2 of this one up here. They should match. So, in your first year is year 0, you earn $36,000. In your second year, you earn $37,260. In your third year, which is 2 years after your first year, that's the 2. So this is years after you get hired. 1 year after you get hired, 2 years after, 3 years. So 6 years after you get hired, which is your 7th year working there, you could be making $44,253. So next thing I want you to do, use that same process and enter the formula for the salary for job 2. Try that out. The keystrokes are right here. The only differences are going to be, you're going to change 36,000. And you're not going to type in 1.035, you're going to type in 1.0 what? Four five, yeah. So job 2 is not going to be 36,000, it'll be 34,500. And it won't be 1.035, it'll be 1.045. So give that a try, but do all the same keystrokes as you did for job 1. And you can double check your work, because if you look at the L3 that's printed on the paper, you should have the same numbers on your calculator as are printed on the paper. So that's a good way to verify that you've done it correctly. Anybody need help with this, or are we okay? Getting okay, hopefully? All right. No? All right, so let's see, I'm gonna go clear this out. All right, so from L3, ready? Type in alpha, and then plus, and then 34,500. That's the starting salary for job 2. Times 1.045, because it's a 4.5% increase instead of a 3.5% increase. And then once you have the 1.045, hit the exponent button, and then second, and then 1 after you hit second. So use L1, the numbers from L1 as your exponent, and then hit enter. And hopefully that'll get you the numbers. Yeah, cool. All right. So question number 2. For what years is job 1 the best offer? The first 4 years? 1 through 4, 0 through 4, right? Yeah. So that would be that would be years 0 through 4, right? So which is the same thing as saying the first 5 years. Because year 0 is the first year. Okay. It's kind of like when you're born, you're not a year old, right? You don't turn a year old until the end of your first year. So technically that first year is 0. You're 0 years old in your first year. So, all right. In what year does the salary for job 2 surpass job 1? In what year does the salary for job 2, what value of X, or what's an L1? 5, right? Yeah. So year 5, or the 6th year. Year 5 is the same thing as the 6th year. Because if you look at the table here, right, 5, you go to year 5, that is actually the 6th number down. So that would be the 6th year, which is the same thing as saying year 5. So year 0 is your first year, year 1 is your second year, year 2 is your third year, and so forth. Suppose job 1 renegotiates and offers a starting salary of $37,000. In what year will the salary for job 2 exceed that of job 1? So job 1, $37,000. So what we need to do is go back to the very top of L2, that's job 1, hit enter, and then it'll start flashing down, and then you can just change the 6, scroll over until you're blinking over the 6 and just hit 7 instead. And that'll change the numbers. You can just go up to the top, hit enter, scroll over to the 6, hit 7 instead, hit enter, and then we've got these numbers. Now, what issue do we run into? Yeah, why not? Yeah, job 1 is not exceeded by job 2 within the first 7 years of that job. So we need to go over here and we need to add some more numbers. Let's do 7. And when you type those numbers in, it's just going to automatically keep going with these numbers. 8. There it is. So I think we found it. That will be in what year? That would be year 8 or the 9th year. Job 1 is $48,722 a year, and job 2 is $49,062 a year. All right. Under what conditions should you accept the second job? I mean, this is, you're talking about total. Yeah. I mean, if you're talking about total, I would say, yeah, that's an interesting thing. True. We're not going to be able to figure all that out. But what we can do, we can actually figure out the sum of those. I'm just going to grab another calculator real quick. No, yeah, it could be just easy to say, hey, once job 2 surpasses job 1, so that would be like 9 years or more, right? That's an easy way to answer that question. However, I like the thought of like total amount of money earned over those years. So I'm just going to go ahead and do the math here. That way you don't have to go away from that screen. So if we add together, let's see, 37,000 plus 38,295 plus 39,635, 41,023, 42,458, 43,944, 45,482, 47,074, 48,722. All right. Session total of $350,333 for the first 9 years of job 1. Okay. Job 2, 34,500, $36,053, $37,675, $39,370, 41,142, 42,993, 44,928, 46,950, 49,062. That's actually more. That doesn't really make sense, does it? Did I type in something wrong? It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Oh, wait, $3,700. Ah, there it is. Insert a 0. There we go. 383,633. Okay. So we're still, what, about $11,000 short? Okay. So it's not actually going to take that much longer, I wouldn't think. Because if we type in a 9 over here, you're making $1,000 more. There's a 10, 11, 12, 13. So it definitely starts to separate once you get to year 12 and 13. So let's just keep it basic. And let's just say, under what conditions? I'd say if you're planning on spending at least 10 years, that would be a good baseline. So, plan on staying at least 10 years. We could definitely get into the nitty gritty here and do a lot more detail with it, but I don't really think that's what this problem is so much about. So, number 6. West Coast Supplies is offering a starting salary of $43,250 and a pay rate. Yeah, work through that one. And then let's see. I'm going to cross off number 3 down here. Let's not worry about that one. But we just need to change a few things here. So just go back to L2 at the top. And let's just change the parameters. So we don't need to like do too much new stuff. We don't need to worry about any of the alpha second exponent stuff. Just hit enter here. And then replace 37,000 with 43,250 with a 2% raise per year. So I'm going to delete the 3 there and do 1.02. And then hit enter. And there's our job 1. Job 2 is offering 44,000. So enter 44,275. And that will be a 1.5% raise per year. So 0.15. There we go. So just quick changes there. Determine what the salaries will be in year 3, 5, and 8. Okay, so job 1, job 2. So year 3 is going to be this one here. That's 2. Year 3 is 2. The first year is year 0. So year 3, you're in your 3rd year, 44,997. Job 2, 45,613. Year. So 3, 5, and 8. All right, so there's year 3, years 4, and year 5. So year 5 is the 4th full year. So year 5, 46,815 and 46,992. Year 8 would be number 7, 49,681. And over here, 49,138. All right. If you're planning to relocate and change jobs in 6 years, which one is the better offering? Job 2. Yeah, it pays more over the first 6 years. So, all right, let me grab you your assignment here real quick. One piece of paper today. So just 11 problems on today's paper. And go put the calculator back in the charger. I do not have TAT today. We got a meeting right after school, so I will have TAT again tomorrow. If you got to get stuff turned in for me, please make sure that happens before 3 o'clock. And then once the bell rings, we will get ourselves out of here. Actually, it is 11:49. You're good to go. I'll see you tomorrow.